Hey everyone, it's Thursday and I'm going to do something a little bit different this week. I'm going to talk about what makes a chocolate good. And there are a few factors that go into that, only one of them being taste. So we're going to talk about a few things that what makes a chocolate good. So let's talk about taste because that's what most of us evaluate chocolate on first. So when you are talking about craft chocolate makers, and I hope you'll excuse me from looking down a lot. I've got a lot of chocolate here that I want to show you as an example and some notes. I don't want to get things wrong. So when you're looking at a chocolate maker who is going to be making good chocolate, there's a few things that you can look at on their packaging, if you don't know anything about them, that will give you a clue as to whether or not it's going to taste good. So usually fine quality craft chocolate makers want to convey to you as much information as they can that indicates the quality and time that they've put into the bar. So let me show you a few examples of putting that information on their wrapper so that you can know that it's a quality bar. Okay, so here's an example from Fresco. Fresco is out of Washington. And they, right up front, are telling you a whole bunch of information about their bar right on the front here. First, that it's artisan chocolate. Second, they're telling you where it's coming from. So they're talking about single origin. They're telling you where the cocoa beans are coming from. They're not hiding them. It's not a blend. It's a 70% cacao, so it's got a high cacao percentage. They're even telling you the batch number, so I bet that he could go back and look up his recipe for that batch. And he's telling you here something that a lot of makers don't tell you on their bar: medium roast and long conch. And then if you flip around to the back, he's got even more information back here. You can see that it is a short ingredient list. It's not 32 ingredients long and has names that you can't recognize. You can pronounce all of these words. So he's got cocoa beans, cane sugar, and cocoa butter, and that's it. So all of this information is to let you know that he is working hard on producing a good tasting quality bar. We'll talk about this in a minute. So here's another way that they can convey the information from you. This is Toac. These guys make the most expensive quality chocolate in the world. But that's not this one. I can't afford their most expensive chocolate. So if you can see on this one, they've conveyed all kinds of information on the front of this. So they've got the harvest, even the year of the harvest. They've got dark chocolate. They've got the percentage. They've got the flavor profile. They've got the variety of the beans. So this is a Nacional bean. They've got all kinds of information right up front that they're letting you know that it's light roast, no conch. This is to let you know as the consumer that they've put effort in not only gathering quality beans, but into the process to make a fine tasting, fine flavored chocolate at the end. And again, if you look on the back of this one even gives you the percentages. So you've got 70% cacao, 5% cacao butter, and 25% cane sugar. Short list. Nothing that you cannot pronounce and nothing that shouldn't be with cocoa. So that's another example. Sometimes your grocery store chocolate will try to use marketing techniques to trick you into thinking you're getting fine flavor chocolate. Technically, places like Hershey's and Lindt and other ones that you get in the grocery store, they are bean to bar chocolate makers, but they're starting with a different bean than craft makers are. And they're doing a different process. And so that makes the difference in what a good bar tastes like. So let's say, okay, I want to try some real chocolate. I want to try some really good craft chocolate. I walk into this store and I'm overwhelmed by the choices. How do I know? How do I know what's a good chocolate bar? How can I tell? So if you're overwhelmed you can either reference, there's a lot of professional chocolate tasters online who will tell you what things are good, or there's 3 industry awards that actually there's a few more industry awards that are given out that makers, when they win these awards, they will put them on their bar so that you can know that somebody else judged this chocolate and thought it was a really good bar. So there's ones like, so here's 2 examples. These 2, this one is from the Academy of Chocolate. This is a Soma Old School Milk. And this one is from the International Chocolate Awards. So they've won these awards in the past. Here's another one that has won the International Chocolate Award, the World, and the Academy of Chocolate. What else? Oh, here's another one. Here's another kind of award that they can win. It's called the Good Food Award. So they've also been evaluated amongst other. The Good Food does more than just chocolate. These other 2 guys do mostly chocolate and chocolate confections. Let's see, what else? Something else that may or may not indicate a good bar. For example, organic. So this one's certified organic. It's using grass-fed milk. That may or may not indicate that it's a good bar. But if, again, you flip in the back and look at their ingredient list. This is a inclusion, so it's got a little bit longer ingredient list. But again, if the maker is wanting to convey their quality, they'll let you know about it up front. So here's another one where you have the percentage, you have where the cacao is coming from, you have the region it's coming from. You flip over to the back and you've got a short ingredient list again. So when someone's putting all the time they do into making a craft chocolate, they want to let you know, we're using quality beans. We're doing this small batch, carefully monitored process to create a really good tasting chocolate that is totally different than anything you can get in the grocery store. Okay, so that's the first way you can tell a chocolate is good. It tastes good. Now, that's the way most of us will evaluate a chocolate, but craft chocolate has different levels to it. So another thing about craft chocolate is that it's good for the farmers and the people that grow the cacao. When you look at, so I'm sure you all heard of fair trade. There are 2 things that are more common in the craft industry than fair trade. There's direct trade and fairly traded. So here's an example from Amano where he says at the bottom, fairly traded with the farmer. Now, there's no symbol stamp on here anywhere that says it is a fair trade product. Does that mean that it's not fair traded? No. It means that the farmer didn't have to go through a certification process that cost him a lot of money. And the people at Amano contacted the farms directly and offered them a fair price directly and dealt directly with the farmers so that there's no middlemen, there's no extra paperwork and extra money required for the certification. So that means that the farmers are paid a fair price. So there's the price for commodity cacao. 10% above that is the fairly traded price, and most craft chocolate makers will pay even substantially more than that. Most of the cacao in the world, over 60%, comes out of 2 countries in Africa, Ghana and Ivory Coast. And there's a lot of inequality in the farming, and there's a lot of government things and just some policy issues that go along with the cacao in that area. And many farmers are not even paid what the UN would consider poverty level wages, which is $1.25 a day. Now, cacao is very hands-on farmed product. You have to pick the pods by hand. You have to open the pods by hand. The fermentation process is very hands-on. It has to be monitored. Drying is done by them spreading it by hand. So it's a very labor-intensive process. And when they're only paid less than $1.25 a day, it becomes a problem. They can't support their families. And that's when you come up with other issues like slave labor, child labor, and not educating children and things like that. So there are several bars that are trying to switch the narrative when it comes to being good for the farmers. And there's lots of them, and I will show you just a few here today. So there's Beyond Good. I have, this is an old wrapper. They've rebranded to Madagascar Beyond Good. So Beyond Good would be the name up here. These guys were in the Peace Corps in Madagascar, and they saw that most of the value in chocolate leaves the country. So when you have, most of the beans are grown in the equatorial region within 20 degrees of the equator, but most of the processing and the value added to the beans happens outside of that zone. So most of the processing and consuming happens outside of that equatorial zone. When you bring the processing back into that zone, the value that's added from going from a bean to a chocolate bar goes back to those farmers. So these guys at Beyond Good have set up farms and cooperatives on the island of Madagascar and have educated the farmers on the process of growing, fermenting, drying the beans so that they can get a good price for their quality cacao versus just a commodity price. So that's one way they're giving back to the farmers, and they've created all kinds of economic systems to support them. Here's another one. This one is out of Ghana. Ghana is one of the countries that I mentioned where 60% of the cacao comes from. This one is two sisters. They've decided to pull the value of a chocolate bar back into the country that makes the commodity. So because they make this in Ghana, the value of the bar stays in the economy of Ghana. So that, once again, is good for the people where the cacao grows. Let's see what else. Here's two other examples of people who make the bars and grow the beans at the same time. So this is Suneaters. She's out of Trinidad and Tobago. This is a Black-owned company. And she's part of the Alliance of Rural Communities, which is also this one. So they've gotten together a co-op and they make their bars. So instead of shipping the beans, which they would fetch, if they were quality beans, a good price, they ship this off as a finished product and they retain more of the value of the product in their own economy. Another one is Divine Chocolate. Divine is going through some changes right now, but Divine is one of the ones that is very interesting because they are affiliated with a co-op that the farmer co-op owns 40% of this chocolate business. So they're bringing the profits and sharing them back with the farmers versus just taking the beans and giving them commodity price. So this one, these guys are awesome. They also support female-led leadership. They've had a female leading their co-op. The farmers do have a voice in how the company is run. So when we're not allowing the drain on their economy and bringing it back in, the farmers benefit from those value being added to their economies and to their farms. So that's another way that craft chocolate is good chocolate. All right, so let's talk about the third way that craft chocolate is good chocolate. So we have, it's good because it tastes good. It's good because it's better for the farmers. Now let's talk about it's good for the planet. Cacao trees, Theobroma cacao, is what's called an understory tree. It grows in a rainforest and it doesn't like to be the top touching the sunshine. It likes to be underneath the trees and getting filtered light as an understory tree. So it has to have taller trees growing around it. So the fact that cacao needs to have the rainforest to support its own growth means that we have to support the rainforest if we want cocoa. So there's a lot of shifts in agroforestry when you're growing cocoa to growing a multitude of different products on the same farm. So diversifying, not having a monoculture, diversifying on your farm, planting trees, rainforest trees that are either food producing or not, to produce the filtered light that the cacao likes. So here's a few. I'll show you a few that I have that are good for the rainforest. So there's Louisa Abram. Louisa, she only uses wild grown cacao. So she does not go to a plantation and collect her cacao. She works with farmer cooperatives who go out into the rainforest and find wild growing cacao, and she makes her chocolate from those. So she supports retaining the rainforest and supports the Amazon with, because she's in Brazil, she supports maintaining the Amazon so she can continue collecting the commodity of the cacao. And she works with the farmers and the co-ops directly. Another one that's good for the planet is Original Beans. These guys are double super good for the planet. These guys are awesome. They're out of the Netherlands, and they not only are sourcing beans out of the rainforest and other areas, they often have a project that goes along with the beans that they are sourcing. So on their packaging, you'll see gorillas or birds or frogs, or on one of their packages, there's even women from a cooperative they support. So they donate some of the money back to social projects in the area to support the farmers who are growing the cacao, so that they can do environmentally sustainable farming. They are also what's called a carbon positive company. So if you look up here on the top, it says 1 bar, 1 tree. So you can actually go to the internet and put this number on, and they will tell you where they planted a tree because you purchased this bar. And they will plant this. They've planted thousands of trees in support of the rainforest. Sometimes they're planting crop trees. Sometimes they're planting cacao trees. Sometimes they're planting rainforest support trees. But they're climate positive because their trees that they plant take up more carbon dioxide than they use producing the chocolate bars. So they support the environment in those two ways, and they also produce, their packaging is all biodegradable. So there's cool inside of these bars is they have what's called a wood foil wrapping. So 100% biodegradable. I believe it's even compostable in your backyard. So that's another way that this is good for the planet. Let's see what else I got here. So lots of makers now are shifting to biodegradable packaging. Eskinosi has been doing it for a while. They have this biodegradable packaging on the outside. These strings are from the bags that the cocoa comes in, so reduce, reuse, recycle. These guys are a great company. They also very much support the farmers, so they're good for the farmers too. And you can see on here, they've also won awards. So they're hitting all three of my goods with that one. So you have a craft chocolate bar that tastes good, that's good for the farmers and good for the planet because it's all biodegradable and recyclable. All right, let's go to one more. And I think I'm going to do more in depth on each one of these topics because there's a lot more I can talk about than this. And these videos are already getting pretty long. So the last one is that chocolate is good for you. Dark chocolate, dark craft chocolate is good for you. Now, I know you've seen the studies every once in a while, usually around Valentine's Day or Christmas. A study comes out and says, oh, now you can eat all the dark chocolate you want because it's actually good for you. There are a lot of reasons that dark chocolate is good for you. One of the reasons is that short ingredient list that I showed you. Kraft chocolate has short ingredients. This is Chocolate Conspiracy. I've opened this one because I was snacking on it. You can see their ingredient list. He's got raw organic cacao. He's got raw organic cacao butter and raw unfiltered honey. If you are into all that, you can see this list here that he's got gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, paleo, local honey, no artificial ingredients, no preservatives, no refined sugar, fair-traded cacao. That list applies to many, many Kraft chocolate makers. Many are allergen-free. Many do not have artificial ingredients. Like I said, they usually have those 3 ingredients. Sometimes they will have vanilla, but it's always natural vanilla with a good chocolate maker. It's not vanillin, which is an artificial vanilla product. Preservative-free. One day, take a look at the back of your Hershey bar or your Lindt bar and compare it to the ingredient list on a Kraft chocolate bar, and you'll see what I'm talking about there. They often work with the farmers in that they want the farmers to not use herbicides, not use pesticides, and be chemical free. When they have that direct relationship with the farmers, they can often convey that this is what my consumer wants. This is what's going to be good for the consumer. So that's kind of like a double overlap there where we have it's good for you because it's lacking all of those chemicals and pesticides and other additives that you get in the chocolate, but also good for the environment because you're not putting those things into the environment as well. So back to the studies. So there have been some studies that show that dark chocolate may have some beneficial health effects. So flavanols and flavonoids, you've probably heard tossed around with chocolate, also with wine. It's an antioxidant, and there has been shown some connection to cardiac health with consuming dark chocolate. There's theobromine and caffeine, which are 2 different kinds of stimulants that are in chocolate that can make you feel relaxed a little bit. There are anandamides, which are like a cannabinoid substance, which hooks with it has a neuro response in your brain that is similar to other cannabis products. But it is not the same as marijuana. Just want to make sure that is clear. And the fact that many cacao makers also choose high quality ingredients to go into their bar, like this one, he's choosing local honey to go into the bar. So he knows where that honey is coming from. He knows how the farmer's growing it. He knows that it's not as processed as a different source of honey would be. And so there's a lot. And like I said, sometimes you can get, if you look at a regular chocolate bar, you can see that often the first ingredient is not chocolate, not cocoa. It's sugar, it's milk, it's some kind of fat, hydrogenated palm oil, or some other kind of oil. But with this short 3 ingredient list, you're not getting all of that other stuff. You're just getting the pure chocolate. Now with the flavonoids and the other chemical compounds, it's hard to say how much you're getting with each bar because of the different processes, each step in the process, the fermentation step, the drying step, the roasting step, they can all change the levels of these chemicals in the cacao. So it's hard to say. There's not a consistent dosage, like if you eat 2 grams of chocolate, you'll get this many flavonoids. They can't say that because the processes for each maker are just so different. But there is some benefit, there is some correlation with dark chocolate and some health benefits. So there's my 4 that I want to talk about today. it tastes good, it's good for the farmers, it's good for the planet, and it's good for you. And I think your chocolate should have at least those 4 things in it before you would call it a good, before I would call it, before you should call it a good chocolate. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about all of that, whether you have another criteria that you would tack onto that list, or if you think I'm wrong. You think there's something, if you have some opinion that you'd like to share with me, I'd love to see it in the comment section. So that's today's video. Next week, I think we'll probably go back to another maker and we'll take it from there. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you get to have some good craft chocolate soon.